back to Experiences Unexplained. I have a very interesting episode for you lined up, and we actually have a special guest tonight. On this episode, you'll hear a conversation between me and author Lisa O'Hara. Lisa is the author of the book Abducted and Furious, How I Fought Back and How You Can Too. In this book, Lisa discusses her experiences of realizing that she is being visited and abducted by extraterrestrial beings and what tools she used to be able to fight back and resist against being abducted. It wasn't until the year 2017 that Lisa made the realization that she has been abducted, and this is still an ongoing problem that she deals with today. Lisa wrote this book to help anyone and inform anyone that may be abductees and who are having negative experiences like she has had. And she hasn't had much luck finding people like her with negative experiences. So if this is you and you have a negative abductee experience that you'd like to share, feel free to contact me at experiencesunexplained.com and click on the Submit Your Experience tab. You can also call our hotline at 1-270-290-0900. And I will also leave links to Lisa's Facebook page and her website and leave her contact information as well as a link to buy her book in the show notes below. And if anything that Lisa explains or talks about that you can relate to, feel free to reach out to her because she's really trying to connect with other people that have had similar experiences to hers. And during this conversation, I refer to several other UFO sightings and abductee experiences, and I'll also have links to those stories down below in the show notes. So if this conversation piques your interest at all, I highly suggest that you take a look at the show notes below because I will have plenty of other resources for you to further look into this topic. But without further ado, please give a warm welcome to author Lisa O'Hara. Lisa, for those that don't know about your story or what you have gone through, can you tell me a little bit about how you first thought you were abducted or you got the idea of I've been visited by ETs?
Yes. What happened was initially I was realizing that throughout my life that I was different than a lot of people, but I couldn't describe it because there was just no words for some of the things that would happen to me. But after a while, I thought maybe I was a medium. And so because I had gotten some messages from other, from entities that were passed away, like my mother and my grandmother. So that put me in the search for a mentor, someone to teach me how to be a medium, because that's where I thought I was supposed to go. So I did a lot of meditation, and I also went to this medium pretty regularly trying to become a medium. But I discovered I didn't actually want to do that. But in the meantime, while I was meditating a lot, I would talk to what I call my spirit guides, which are somebody who was directing me. And so one night I was meditating in bed, and this was in 2017. And so because I sleep better when I meditate before sleep. And I suddenly felt this very strong negative presence in my room. And when I felt that, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what is that? So I asked my spirit guide, what in the heck is that really negative feeling that I'm having right now? And they said, my spirit guide said, it was ETs. They've come to take you and they took all your eggs. So that led me to where I am now, and also to write a book about it because I was really upset to find that out.
Well, I imagine so. That'd be very life-changing to figure out, how long exactly were you told that you were abducted? Like, was it, I've read in your book that they visited you frequently, correct?
Yes. From what I can tell, because they erase our memories, or, you have no memory of it. It seemed like for a long time, it was 4 times a night. And there were times when I felt like I was being abducted by one group and then abducted by another group. And at some point I thought it was also people. So as if the ETs take you and then the people take you. They try to find out what you saw, what you know, and then they put you back too. So that's something that happened.
So up to 4 times a night, that is, I don't imagine you got any sort of deep sleep or anything like that.
No, and then when I would come back, I would be awake for multiple hours because I just couldn't sleep.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. It's exhausting.
Yeah. So going back to the early days of when you were getting into mediumship, so you said you had messages from loved ones that had passed on. Now, were these physical messages, or were they like signs from the afterlife, or were you hearing voices? What type of messages were
Yeah,
you
I was
receiving?
hearing voices, and actually one of them was from my mother, and she insisted that I write something down, and I contact my one of my sisters. I have three sisters, and give her a message, and she made me write everything down. It was very specific, but yet cryptic at the same time.
Yeah.
And so she made sure I contacted my sister and told her the things that she told me to tell her. And so I did do that. It was strange because it was extremely, in some ways, extremely specific. Like I had to tell a specific sister, I had to tell her a very specific thing, but the actual message was cryptic. Sort of like listen to your intuition or something like that, which is not specific. you know.
Sure. So was this an audible message that you heard, or did it kind of
Yeah.
come from within? Oh, it was audible.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's sort of like your own thought.
Hmm.
That's how it seems
Sure.
like. So you're sitting there and you suddenly hear in your own voice, in your own head, um, Lisa, it's your mother. It's your mother. you know,
Yes.
you have to get a message to your sister. Write this
Yeah.
down right now. So, and also you could feel the pressure of the excitement and enthusiasm and urgency. So some of those are actually feelings as opposed to actual thoughts, right? But you
Yeah.
could feel the urgency. And so I mean, at first I was like, come on, really?
Yeah.
But after a while, the pressure was pretty intense. So I did write it down and then I tried to contact my sister.
And your sister's reaction to receiving that message?
Well, she kept saying, what else? What else have you heard? And unfortunately, that's all I heard. So, which was actually, this is the true message, listen to your intuition. And one of them was my sister had a boyfriend, and she was saying, and that person is blocking our relationship, mine and hers. So I said that, but I didn't really want to because you don't want to negatively talk about your sister's significant others.
I can completely relate to that. I mean, that's very interesting. So you said that not only your mother, but you also was reached out by your grandmother?
Yes, my grandmother, on my dad's side, his mother had passed away quite a long time ago. And I was just about to, at that time, go to my parents' house and visit my mom and dad. And my mother was very ill with ALS. And so I would go and visit to try to alleviate some pressure on one of my other sisters who was taking care of my mother at the time. And so right before I went there, my grandmother said, the reason your father is like this is because of me. That was the message. And at first I was just thinking, yeah, because he's not a very nice guy. I thought that's what it meant. But it turned out that there was even worse experiences to come when I went to visit because he was, very stressed from my mother being ill and kind of acted out kind of like a toddler.
Sure. I mean, at a time of like when you have a family member that is not doing well, it can be a very stressful situation,
Yes. Yes.
especially especially when the care falls on like one person or they've just been overwhelmed with medical bills and organizing
Exactly.
things. Yeah.
And medical, equipment and,
Sure.
just the lack of sleep and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when your grandmother reached out, was it, you said it was on your way to go see your mother?
Actually, it was a couple of days before I left, so I just thought that was strange. I mean, from the minute I met my grandmother, she was very controlling and very unusual woman. And my dad didn't talk to her too much. And my grandmother disowned my father at some point. So it was strange that she would pop up, I thought. But I realize now that was probably a warning. But I just didn't realize it at the time because of the message. Like I said, it's cryptic. It can be taken multiple ways.
Right.
And so when she said, well, he's the way he is because of me. I was like, well, you weren't a very good mother, but I never imagined it was some sort of warning that however he acts when you're there is because of me too.
And when you received this message, was it kind of received the same way as your mother's message, like in your head?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty interesting. Like, is that the two main medium experiences that you've had? Are you still a practicing medium?
I never practiced. I decided early on that it was just really hard. Now, kudos to all mediums because
Right.
it is a difficult thing. You have to be able to connect to the right person, and you have to, there are a lot of steps to it.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have to trust what you hear in your head and repeat it to someone. And when, in any case where somebody's coming to you and they're paying you money, there's some pressure on you to say the thing that you're hearing, but it might not make sense to you, but it might make sense to them. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to them. So at some point I just decided that this is so hard. It's so stressful. I don't want to do this anymore. At first I thought it was going to be a lot easier because I had, had some experiences where it seemed like falling off a log. But when you actually got into the meat of it, it's really hard.
Yeah, I imagine so. And you're so uncertain that you're even, like you said, receiving the message clearly or interpreting it right. And I can imagine it being very, stressful because just based around mediumship, there's so much skepticism,
There is. And also if they give you a picture, that's one of the things that I would get sometimes as a picture. Well, what is this? What does this mean? Am I going to interpret the picture the way you would interpret it, or that this person who's coming to me would interpret it? It's because I think in the, spirit or ghost life, it's easier for them, instead of speaking a lot of times, it's easier to give a picture. But I just find it to be an extremely stressful situation and not for me.
I can understand that, and I can respect that as well. I don't feel like I might be a little sensitive because I have had some paranormal experiences, hence why I have this podcast, but I don't think I'm that sensitive and able to connect to the other planes and things like that. But like you said, kudos to those that can, and I'm glad we have some of those people around.
I am too.
So you said you ended up forming a relationship with your spirit guide and communicating with them. Now, when you communicated with your spirit guide, I'm trying to remember the name. Was it Koreg?
Yes.
Okay, Koreg was your spirit guide. So when you received these messages, was it the same type of messages that you would receive when you were trying to do the mediumship? Was it like the inside of your head in your own voice, or was it like audible?
Actually, it wasn't audible. I wish it was, because I think it would be a lot easier for people to believe it, if it was audible.
Yeah, any time you have physical evidence, it makes it a little easier.
That's true. No, it was inside my head. It did sound like a different voice, and it also was pictures. So it took me quite a while before I could distinguish the information I was getting, because I didn't know if it was, I would speak to my spirit guide and ask him for information, and then I would get something. But other times I just got pictures. For instance, I used to live in California, and I would ride the bus to go. I would ride the train and then a bus, and then I'd walk a couple of blocks to my job. And when I was on the bus, a lot of times I would be sitting next to people, minding my own business, sort of daydreaming, and a picture of them would pop into my head, and it would be of them in their backyard at a barbecue, at a birthday party, something like that. And so sometimes I don't really know where these things come from, and it's hard to describe. And it's hard, when you're trying to figure out what you are or what your path is, when you have these pictures that pop in your head of people sitting across from you on the bus, it makes you scratch your head and say, this isn't normal, but what is this? What do I call this? Sure. And so with my spirit guide, I would sometimes get pictures, like when I'm driving, for instance, if I don't know which way I want to go to avoid traffic, a picture will pop in my mind of a street name that would be better. And so when I turn onto it, or sometimes I'll see a picture of a cop on the road, and then I'll know there's a cop ahead. So, at first it was just voice, I think, because I was getting information from other areas. And so that's why my spirit guide Koreg would talk to me, because otherwise there was just too many other ways for me to get information. And he probably wanted me to know that it was him versus something else.
Well, I wish I could get in touch with my spirit guide. He could have saved me $100 on speeding tickets. Tell me a cop's up ahead of the road. Yeah. So you said you referred to Koreg as a him. So when these messages came across, was it not in your voice? Was it in a male's voice?
It was in a male voice, yeah.
So you were better able to kind of separate it from your other intuitive messages?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's clearly come across as something else.
Yes, and I also would ask him by name, so I thought that, I was getting him versus someone else.
Okay. So now I read that you referred to the ETs as grays. Now, you said they wiped your memory. Could you not remember what they looked like, but you're referring to them as grays? Were they gray?
I think that the major amount of people think that there is, it's mostly grays, but actually I have seen like a shadow of a gray. So I imagine that was a gray, but mostly what I've seen is praying mantis.
So like the ETs looked like praying mantis?
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Were they like human size, but they were praying mantis?
No, they were taller. I'm 5'10", so I don't know how tall you are. You're probably 6'5".
I'm around 6, but
okay. Well, I'm 5'10", and you kind of, when you're tall, you can kind of get a general idea of the shorter people versus the taller people.
Sure.
So I was sitting up in bed, and I saw a praying mantis, and they were pretty tall. I would probably rate them at like 7 feet tall.
Wow. I don't know what I would do if I saw something like that, honestly.
Yeah, a giant bug talking to you.
Yeah. So you said they took your eggs.
Yes.
That's what Koreg told you.
Correct.
So is it just one certain group that you think took your eggs, or were all of these different groups of ETs interested in taking your eggs?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. Not to be too personal, but I don't have children and I never had the ticking clock. And I always wondered, why I was different than everyone else. But it kind of made sense, that they were gone, and that's why I didn't, have this ticking clock and I didn't have children. So I don't know who took them. From what I could tell from the tools I found that is in my book too, is that it was praying mantises and then some people. Or sometimes there would be like, I don't know how to describe this, but sort of like a glowing like energy being that was tall also. So I'm not really sure who took them or why, or if they took them for a specific purpose. But I never had children, and I also started menopause early. So I don't know. It's a good question.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely didn't mean to get too personal on that one. I was just curious about that, whether it was a certain group that was fascinated with maybe human reproductive systems or if it was across the board.
Well, I think grays, in the media, they talk about how they have hybrid children. And I have had dreams where I had, grays or a being come up to me. And sometimes I can't tell what the being looks like. And they'll hand me a baby and say, "This is yours. How does it make you feel?" And I remember saying in my dream, which I thought was interesting, I said, "Well, I'm not going to tell you because you'll use it against me. If I feel, something for this baby, you'll use that to get me to do things for you. So I'm not going to tell you." So I thought that was pretty wise. Who knows what
Yeah.
really goes on?
I mean, it's pretty brave of you to even try to fight back, whether it be mentally or physically.
Yeah.
So, now you talked about being abducted multiple times throughout the night. Now, you mentioned you were married. Does your husband recollect you being gone any time through over the times of you being abducted? Had he ever woken up and you just not be there?
No, because I don't know about you, but as soon as his head touches the pillow, he's out. So no,
Lucky
he doesn't
him.
wake up in the middle of the night, and he doesn't stay awake very long at all before he drops off. So no, he never saw anything. There were a couple of times I woke him up because I started screaming, "Oh my gosh, there's something black on the ceiling. I can see it." So I didn't know if that happened, if there was a delay and that actually happened um, before, but I was having a delay in memory, or if it happened at the time when I got back. I didn't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I wish I slept that well. I wake up a lot during the night. So yeah, I'm sure you're probably familiar with other abduction cases, Betty, Barney Hill. There's usually just one specific event, but you've been abducted several times, even throughout the night. Why do you think the ETs were so fascinated with you?
I haven't the foggiest idea, but whatever it is, I'm taking it away from him. I don't want to be part of this anymore. And it doesn't even make sense because right now I'm 59, and it doesn't make sense why they would continue. If their real purpose is to take people's eggs and use them for hybrid children or whatever, clones or whatever their purpose is, it doesn't make sense that you would take a woman after, she cannot give birth anymore, can't have any more eggs. It just doesn't make sense to me. So there's a
Right.
lot of things like that where I'm trying to figure out what's really happened versus what I think is happening, or what the mainstream media, or all the ET groups talk about, because I don't really know the answer. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. I mean, it would
I
be
mean, if
really
it were
interesting.
happening to you, would you have an idea of why they would be so fascinated with you?
I would definitely be curious. I don't find myself very fascinating.
Well,
um,
in this case, I do think that they're doing experiments on me, to be honest. And for what purpose, I don't know. But I do have an eye implant, and it's really bright, and I think it's maybe AI. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is. It keeps coming back. Keep trying to get rid of it. It comes back. Sometimes it changes shape, and it's really, really bright. It's sort of like when you rub your eye and you can see that little orb.
uh-huh.
Well, that orb makes a circle in my eye at various times during the day. And for a while, I thought there was something looking through my eyes, sort of using me.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something to that, where they're trying out their scary AI stuff on humans, and maybe I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't know.
Have you ever gone to an optometrist to see if maybe they could see something inside of your eye?
Yes, actually, I have ophthalmologist because of eye issues. But yeah, I've told him about it. I also have these little spiny, black spiny things in my left eye, and I've been going to the ophthalmologist for years trying to find out what these things are, but they say it's all normal.
Hmm. Well, it doesn't sound normal, and it
It
sounds
doesn't feel
frustrating.
normal to me.
Yeah, I imagine so. So not to get too personal, but have you noticed any other like physical marks or anything? Maybe where they try to remove eggs or any whatever they tried to experiment on you. Do you have any other maybe signs on your body that you could
Oh
kind of?
yeah. Yeah, I do. I have a lot of in my print book, and I don't know which one I sent you, if I sent you the print book or the Kindle, but the Kindle version has, color photos from my iPhone, so they're not the greatest quality. But yeah, I have tons of marks on my body. For a while, I would, find six finger marks, and I didn't take a lot of pictures early on because I didn't even think I'd write a book, but here I am. So yeah, I have a lot of strange things on my legs. One of them is in my book, and it looks like a J and a P. So it looks sort of like a brand. And so
Hmm.
I wasn't too happy to find that. And it was really strange. I've had a six, I've had an L, I had a V, just little, weird marks, which I can't describe. Also, and this is, I've seen this in the ET community where they say they have a little square on their arm, and I have that too. So,
Hmm.
and those little marks turn into little freckles after a while. So it's really weird how, these come about. For a while, I thought they were just, I thought I was looking at a triangle, but I finally realized that I was actually looking at two parallel bumps or four parallel bumps. So like two on one side, two on the other, and they were exactly the same amount of distance between each other. And after a while, I decided that they must be stun gun marks because I could find them all over my body in different widths. And
Hmm.
so that, a lot of these clues are extremely confusing. They are, hard to determine what they are. All you have to go on is the mark you have, and then go to a ET website and see if you can match it up with someone else who has had a similar mark. But even if you do that, you don't know what these are. You don't really know what they are.
Right.
So you just have to, for the most part, just keep going and hope you can figure out what these things are later. But yeah, I do. I get marks. I actually now, my book was published in February of 2020, so a year ago, and I have fewer and fewer marks now. So that's why I know I'm actually making a difference for myself because the marks are going away.
So, do you feel as though you're still being abducted and it's just happening less, or
Yes.
oh, so you're still being abducted like till this day?
Yes, but it's happening a lot less. I don't have any marks on my body anymore. Different things are happening now, so I do know I'm making progress. Early on, and I can't prove this either, but I would be driving, and I live in Arizona, so there's a lot of sunshine, and I would see, a glare on the back of somebody's car that was in front of me at the light, and when I blinked, I could see what looked like holes in my eye. So, and it would be in a certain pattern. And and I found out from my medium, because I was still going to her at that time, that somebody put those in using long needles, and I could see the holes. So that stopped happening. So I know I'm making progress with these things that were happening that I don't remember and don't know about.
Well, I'm glad you're making progress. That's definitely a good thing. You that your vision and things are getting better, especially if it's affecting when you're driving and things like that. So it's definitely a good thing. Now, you gave me the electronic copy of your book, and
Okay.
I've only been able to get through the first couple of chapters because I worked a lot this week. But I did read in your book that you actually at one point had bought like security camera.
Yeah.
They were like photo frames, so they were kind of
Yes.
like undercover security
Right.
cameras. Okay, and can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I bought nanny cams. And initially, when I told my husband, let me go back a little bit.
Sure.
He kind of, when I told him about the ET thing, he just sort of like, oh, come on, that's wrong or whatever. And at first it kind of made me feel better, but then I felt like I couldn't tell him what I was, up to with this whole ET thing. So I bought these nanny cams and, they have, or it's like a picture frame and it has a fake picture in it. And I set him up in my room and I told him because he knew about the mediumship that I was trying to catch ghosts on film,
Hmm.
and I set them up in various areas of my bedroom. But each time I would get abducted the next day, I would find that the nanny cam photo frames did not work or they weren't off. So I would turn them on, and there was on and off, and it would be the slider would be in the middle. So it wasn't on, it wasn't off, but it didn't work. And I would have to reboot it to get it to work. So that happened every time. So I never got anything out of the frames. So that's how you kind of know something's really going on because that shouldn't happen. I mean, what's happening that
Right.
turns the slider to the middle after you made sure you turned it on, both of them, that are on your bookshelf facing your bed? That shouldn't happen. It should be okay. So something's going on and I can't capture it.
Mm. So, did you happen to read any reviews of these photo frames? Has anybody had the same problem, or do you think
No,
it's
everybody
no?
said, "Oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever." And, it looks just like a real frame and blah, blah.
Yeah.
So everybody liked it, but mine just kept stopping working and didn't have any explanation for it. And I tried multiple times and there was never anything on there. I mean, I would run tests where I would have my bedroom during the day, everything was fine. I could see all of the footage, but then as soon as I turned it on at night, there would be a point where they would just stop.
Mm. Well, that's definitely interesting that it would be fine all throughout the day, but during the time that you actually want to look and see what's
Yeah,
going on, it just happens to not work. That's very suspicious.
it is very suspicious.
Well, so have you tried any other ways of maybe trying to get some physical evidence, or was this at the beginning?
Yes, it was. It was at the beginning.
And you haven't tried any other way
The
to get evidence?
the only I realized that when I was not getting the pictures, that probably they had some sort of technology that was turning it off. My only evidence right now is that I started realizing that my clothes smelled funny on certain days, and I thought that was strange at first. And of course, I gave it the good old, yeah, this has a an easy explanation for it. It's not what I think. So
Yeah.
first I noticed my clothes smelled kind of funny, like BO and feet, and I wrote that in my book. And then I thought, well, this is strange. Where did that horrible smell come from? And I'd throw it in the laundry. And then I would think, well, maybe I didn't put enough laundry detergent. So I'd put extra laundry detergent in. I'd wash those clothes and they were all fine. And the next day I'd find out that they all smelled funny again. And so my washing machine happens to be in the laundry room where I have my cat box in. And I thought, well, maybe it's soaking up the smell of the cat box. I mean.
Yeah.
And so then I, took them immediately as soon as I finished washing and drying them. I'd run in there and put them in my closet. But it kept happening over and over. One day I put out some clothes for the next day and I put them on my bathroom counter. And the next day They smelled like BO and feet. Now, I had actually smelled them before to make sure they didn't smell. So the next day, when they smelled like BO and feet, that made me really wonder, this must be the clothes I'm leaving in. Because where else
Mhm.
would this come from?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. It's very strange that that odor would still keep coming back and back.
Yeah.
I've actually read before someone experimenting. They were an abductee. I can't remember exactly who it was, but when they went to sleep at night, they actually put their clothes on backwards purposely. Have you heard about that?
No.
So, just as a little experiment, they would put their clothes on backwards and go to sleep. And when they woke up, they would be put on the right way. Yeah. So it was like somebody else had undressed them and then put their clothes back on.
Oh, so you've heard of other abductees. So you're not surprised by anything that I'm telling you.
Like I said, I'm a very relaxed guy and I try to be open minded about all of these things. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just a weird guy, but I'm fascinated by it all, and I don't think anything's too out of the question. It's a large, large galaxy out there and universe, and it's infinite. They're saying I can't remember exactly the number, but there's millions of planets per each star in the galaxy now, and there's no way that there's just us out there.
Right.
So I've definitely looked up history of abductees and I've dug into history, but I'm no expert in it. I've never experienced anything like that. I don't think I've ever been in contact. I think there's been one or two times where I've seen something strange in the sky, but I mean, I can't really definitely say I saw something.
Right,
But
right. And that's the
but
problem. The two is that there are, I mean, I think it's by design that there's no evidence because otherwise, that could cause a huge fervor. In this way, you can be discounted. You can be, people can say, oh, she's just crazy. She hears voices. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just easier to put in the crazy town moniker for people because there's no evidence.
right. And on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, you also have these people that consider everything to be evidence.
Right,
They want to believe so bad that this is happening that they don't want to, break down the facts and kind of look at it skeptically. And
right,
I think something like this, you kind of really have to look at the facts and be like, okay, what can I for sure say is happening and what could possibly be a little bit of a stretch.
right.
But that's the bad thing about ufology and extraterrestrials and everything. Everybody, the way Hollywood has depicted it as they're invading the universe and they're going to come down and take everybody and take over the world, it's kind of made people terrified of aliens and extraterrestrials, and it's also put that Hollywood spin on it. And anytime you mention aliens and extraterrestrials, people automatically have an opinion about it before they even hear the story.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's just one of those tough topics. Either people will either believe or they just think you're full of crap. But
Yeah.
it's those few that believe, they really really believe, and it's I don't know, it's just a fascinating subject. So getting into your book a little bit, it's entitled Abducted and Furious, and how I fought back and how you can too. So you say that you've developed, over the years of experience abductions, you've developed some tools and ways that you've been able to make the abductions less frequent.
Yes and no. I mean, I didn't create the tools, but I have been using them for this purpose. So there's a guy named Stuart Swerdlow, and he was a Montauk boy. And I don't know if you've heard of the Montauk experiment, but that is a actual thing, and he was involved in it. So he created, now to go back a little, after I decided not to be a medium, I was also into healing. So like hands-on healing, but not religious in a religious way.
Hmm.
But there's a modality called Reiki, and I don't know if you've heard of that.
I believe I have.
Okay.
I don't
And
know
so,
much about it, but I've heard the word before.
all right, good. Well, that's good because we need more people to know what this is. Um, but I started taking different classes on healing, and there's angelic healing, which I took a class in, and there was another one called Laho Chi, Lahochi. And I took these classes because I just felt like I really wanted to get into healing. Well, it turns out that Stuart Swerdlow had written several books on healing. And so I'm one of those people that are all in. So I bought all of his books and, I referred to them, but I just thought they were kind of esoteric and over my head. Then probably a year later, I was taking some more healing courses and I started, looking at his book a little bit more closely. And also, when I asked my spirit guide Koreg, how can I fight back against these ETs, he actually pointed me to that book because I had already had it, but I thought it was too esoteric and I didn't really understand it. So when I got pointed to the book, then I started using his book, and his book is called Healing Archetypes and Symbols. And he has another book called The Hyperspace Helper. So I read these books and I just started utilizing them toward the ET experience. And so what I did was I just used trial and error. And so I didn't create the tools, but I used them in a specific way. And that's all of that is in my book. You don't need his book you can read my book and use my book, or to use the tools to help you get rid of your ETs, or you can buy his books and, create your own system for it. But so that's what I did. I started utilizing them and they really work. So one of the tools is called the green spiral staircase. And what it allows you to do, it allows you to look at your dreams. Now, I read In Communion by Whitley Strieber. I don't know if you've read any of his books, but he said that the memories that are left behind, your dreams, are actually screen memories. They're not real. So they're created by you, your brain, to alleviate whatever trauma you're going through. So, like, for instance, for me, I know if I have one of those dreams where I'm in this class and I don't remember signing up for it, and today's the exam, and I didn't study, and that feeling of stress, I know that I had stress, but my brain gave me something that I could kind of hang on to. So what the green spiral staircase allows you to do is to look behind the dream or the screen memory to see actually what you're actually dealing with. And so once I was able to do that, I could see what was really happening to me behind the screen memory. And then I can use another tool that is Stuart Swerdlow's. It's called the Brown X. And you say or imagine a brown X in a certain color. It has to be a certain brown. I now brown X out all unnecessary negativity in my life. And when you do that, you now have 86'd basically, whatever that negativity is. And every time you have a dream, you write it down, you go back, you use the green spiral staircase, you use the brown X, and eventually you eliminate the ETs.
So what you're saying, you can use these in your dreams. So
yes.
How are you using these during the abductions when they're actually happening? It's not a dream.
You can't. I mean, because they erase your memory and put the screen memory up, there's nothing you can do. I did find that there are times when I would, while I was in the dream, I was using the Brown X tool to eliminate them. But unless you can, retrieve some memory or be cognizant or lucid during your actual dream or screen memory, I haven't found that there's any way to do that, because they actually do wipe your memory in some way. And there's just no way to get past it as far as I can tell. You know what? Right now, I might be able to do that. I'm working on it. Sort of give myself a suggestion to try to wake up during the, whatever's happening.
Now, I'm sure that you didn't immediately find these resolutions. Like, what all did you try to use before you come to this?
Oh, I tried everything, I'm telling you. So, because I went to I mean, I tried literally everything I could think of. I Googled, abductions and what people used and tried. And, I used something called, my husband would call it my manifesto, where I tried to, um, you know, tell them that I did not consent to this. I had free will. I was sovereign. I did not want this. My medium had me removing soul contracts because she thought that I had chosen this life before I came to the earth, and that I was a soul contract that I needed to break. And I tried everything. I mean, you know, used to bathe with salt, big piles of salt, and I stated my right to free will every night, and I asked for certain protections, and I did it all, but it doesn't work. So that's why I had to find something else. So when I was led back to these books, I was really happy. I was skeptical, but I had tried everything and
Sure.
nothing worked. So I had nothing to lose by reading this and giving it a shot, and it turned out to be great.
Well, I'm glad that something's working for you. It sounds like you've been through a lot just to try to get some answers.
Yes, I have been through a lot. And also, I think it's important that anyone this is happening to, if it's happening to you, go with your gut, because the medium that I went to, she kept saying, "Oh no, no, you're not trying hard enough, you're not being strong enough, you're not doing this, you're not doing that." And I kind of decided to just give it a shot anyway. But my gut was telling me this isn't working, this isn't working. But I wanted to leave no stone unturned, So
Mhm.
once, I tried every single thing and it didn't work, then I could say I've tried everything. So once I found the tools in Stuart Swerdlow's books, I really started seeing some difference. And actually, I went to one of her angelic message nights, and she said, "Oh, your message is that you're leveling the playing field." And when I
Hmm.
heard that, I knew that I was on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really explain how she would know that you were even trying to level the playing field. Like, if
Yeah, exactly. And I hadn't told her because, I knew her stuff wasn't working for me, and I was trying something new, and I didn't think she would appreciate it. And that was my message. You're leveling the playing field. And I knew, that's when I knew I know what's going on here. And then I tried to, find other people like me, just any other people, because I feel like these tools are useful in everyday life, whether you're abducted or not, to, alleviate all the negativity in your life. And so, but I couldn't get any traction. Nobody felt like they needed the tools, and they especially didn't think they needed them because they weren't abducted. So that's why I ended up writing a book.
and I noticed in your book that you often coupled ET abductions with military abductions.
Yes.
Was that your way of trying to reach more people to get them to connect with these tools, or do you think they're kind of one and the same?
I think it's hard to know where the line is, but I do believe that I was being abducted by one group, and then another group of people were coming to get me, because I had multiple visions, or I'd actually see these people before I dropped off to sleep. One of the things that the ETs do is you'll feel like what I call a sleep dart, where you'll feel like a little pinch or like a mosquito bite. You know how sometimes you can feel it when you get bit by a mosquito?
Sure.
And then you'll just fall asleep almost like mid thought, you know? And
Mm.
so I do think that that happens with either the ETs or the people. Now, the people, I've seen them a couple of times where they'll have in their hand a little, looks like a little piece of square leather, and they have it, like, for instance, on their index, middle, and ring fingers. It'll be sticking there, and they'll point it at me. I've seen this, and then I'll fall asleep. So I do think that there are different groups and some of them are people. And so because of that, I was reading, and I read everything as much as possible because you never know where you're going to find a clue for your own situation in someone else's experience. And so I was reading, there's a book called My Labs, MILABS. And it's this husband and wife team that wrote a book about military abductions. And one of the things that they said in there was that the military has you drink something, and then you can't remember anything. And since I saw so many people, I saw it as a military abduction after my regular abduction. The other thing in the My Labs book, because of the eating or drinking something, I kept finding plaque on my teeth. Now I brush my teeth at night, go to bed, and I wear a night guard on my bottom teeth because I grind. And I would find plaque on my upper teeth every morning. And so something was happening to me where I would have plaque on my teeth after brushing every single night. And I got the idea that maybe it was military because I kept seeing people, I kept seeing military guys. I would have a dream of just seeing like big burly hairy arms trying to poke me with some type of like caulking gun. That's what it looked like to me because that's all I could describe. And so I thought that it was military involved. And there have been other times when I've done something called a remote view, which is what I consider what the green spiral staircase is. It's allowing you to remote view your own mind, basically. I could see, military people. And I've seen a lot of, in my dreams and looking behind the screen memories, I've seen a lot of military ETs. I've seen big spiders and wearing uniforms. I've seen reptilians wearing uniforms. So I feel like there's some sort of either separate groups and sometimes groups that are combined. I'm not really sure. I wish I could put all the pieces together and try to and understand exactly everything that's happening to me. But I gain little pieces every once in a while.
Are you familiar with the abduction case of Travis Walton?
I am familiar with it, but I don't think I've read it.
Okay, well, he was actually a guest on the Joe Rogan podcast here recently. I think it was just like last week, but he actually described that the aliens that abducted him, they were wearing kind of like military outfits. There was no like specific insignia or anything that he recognized, but they did have like some sort of uniform. But the reason I bring his case up is because when he first came, he became conscious because he lost consciousness when he was first abducted, but he actually woke up on the spacecraft. And when he woke up, he was just freaking out because he saw, he was on this table laid out and there was all these ETs looking at him. And when he started freaking out and he was asking all these questions, cursing at them and just freaked out, they actually left the room and a human-like alien came in to kind of calm him down. And that's why I asked if you had heard, because that kind of could maybe explain the humans that you're seeing. Maybe they can turn on some sort of disguise or something to kind of calm us down and not be like, oh geez, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
It's I mean, if you want to give that episode a listen, it was just on last week. I believe it's episode 1597, but it's just entitled Travis Walton, so you can easily find it. It was just like last week, but he has a quite amazing story. He was just a logger or a lumberjack, and they were on their way home one night and they saw this bright glow and they pulled over and there was this UFO that was shining bright, and he got out of the truck. For whatever reason, he went to go get closer and they snatched him up. It's kind of a crazy story.
Yeah. Well, what a brave guy too to come up with something like that, because you can imagine the amount of ribbing he took, with his friends and family.
Yeah, it's quite a crazy story. They actually ended up making a movie about it called Fire in the Sky.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, it's a good story if you'd like to listen to that. That's just what it kind of reminded me of when you said you could see these humans and you could actually remember them a little bit. Maybe they weren't actually humans, is what I was trying to get
Yeah,
at.
that's a good point, you know? Never occurred to me. A lot of times when I look back on my screen memories, I do see a lot of times I'm in surgery, I'm in an operating room, and there are people, a mix of people and ETs in there performing surgery. So, yeah, that is an interesting idea because I saw a spider in a people suit. That's
Oh,
how I
really?
described it. So that's probably that's probably the same thing.
Mm, yeah. I mean, he didn't describe it as not looking human in any way. He said it looked pretty much like us, but I mean, maybe underneath it was a big spider or something.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. At this point, it seems like almost anything's possible.
Yes, it does. And that's what's I think is really scares people is because we just don't really know. And we don't really know who we're dealing with and what their capabilities are and what they want with us. And I really wish they would leave our memories alone because I feel like they have some sort of hidden agenda. They're not willing to tell us what it is, and it may be really scary, whatever it is, and maybe they don't feel like we can handle it. But I feel like they're taking away our choice.
Well, that's definitely not comforting. And is that what inspired you to write this book? Is to try to give people these tools so they do have a choice?
Yes, and then also so that they could discover for themselves. I mean, as much as they want to, because You know, as scary as some of these things sound, what happens is, and this happened to me too, was I just became not scared anymore. And whereas I used to be totally scared to fall asleep, I eventually realized that by staying awake all night was not helpful to me because I can't function the next day. But if I just went to sleep when they knocked me out, I would be able to utilize whatever I learned from them, either prior to the abduction or after the abduction, write it all down, and then use it against them with these tools. Because otherwise, you're just like in a vicious cycle. But what happened was that eventually, no matter what they do, I'm not scared anymore. And I think that's really important because I think it's my opinion that they really get off on you being scared, all of your negative emotions. Let's say you have depression or anxiety or panic or fear or terror. I think they kind of enjoy that. So,
Mhm.
as sort of a, go to heck, I
Yeah.
thought I just say, well, I'm not scared anymore. But I am going to figure out what this is all about. And that way they can be the guinea pig. Right now I'm the guinea pig, but what if I turn the tables on them? What if I level the playing field and start, uh, you know, using what I know against them and figuring it all out? But that
Well,
makes me feel powerful, more
d-
powerful.
I hope you are able to figure it out. And you said it seems like what you're trying now is working. So hopefully it just continues to progress and maybe eventually you can finally get some peace and be left alone.
That's exactly my goal, So a lot of people think that I might want attention. I don't. I have always been a behind the scenes person, and this would be the last. If you told me 10 years ago I would do this, I would never have believed you. But I want this to stop and I want it to go away. I don't want large, bright orbs in my eye that sometimes looks like a caterpillar, a striped caterpillar, and other times it looks like a butterfly. I don't want these things. I want them to go away so I can go back to my normal life. But, since that isn't happening, I'm going to go all the way. I'll find out what's really happening to me and stop it. That's my goal.
Yeah, and that's usually a common theme with people who have been abducted. They always usually say, I'm not trying to get famous, I'm not looking for attention or anything like that. And but the problem with that is there's been so many people that have faked like UFOs and they've
Right.
made up stories, and that really, a bad apple spoils the bunch, so it's it just gives a bad rap to the whole topic like we were talking earlier. But I don't know, it's just like I said, I hope you really can find resolution. Now, every time that you've been abducted, you said you lived in Arizona. Is has it always been in Arizona when you've been abducted?
Yes, actually, you know what? A lot of things did happen when I was younger and living in California, but there were, for instance, there was so in California, or actually, I moved around a lot as a little girl, and I lived in Alabama at one point, and I kept finding, I would try to go to sleep, and there would be a white circle on my bed and it would scare me. Now, I didn't know at the time why I was so scared of those things. And I would remember saying, "Oh no, oh no, oh no," like as if some part of me understood what that was. But it wasn't the conscious me. It might be the unconscious or the subconscious me knew that that was something to be afraid of. So those kind of things would happen. I would also, when I actually lived in Turkey for a little while, um, and I would have a daydream that would happen every night, and then it would come true. And so these are things that, like I said, they don't have a label. So you can't say, oh, you're psychic, or, these
Right.
are just little things. So I believe that I have been abducted my whole life, but I think that I just didn't have a word for it, or an experience, or you know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
my spirit guide might known that I was just too young for my age and I would be too frightened. I don't know. But when I've looked at dreams and other things using Stuart Swerdlow's books, I have really found that I probably was abducted, and I've seen a lot of things that are very scary, and it would be very scary for as a little girl also, or a child, to see those things. Um, so I found that the white circle, what it seems to be, is some sort of signaling device. I've seen it several times, either a signal or it's about torture. So like watching white lights, like as a torture device. Like I'm showing you white lights, and whenever you see white lights, it means torture. I've seen it in my room now. I'll see a white circle, and it's not like a torch. It's just sort of like a white circle, as if somebody had put a big piece of paper over a flashlight. And so it's not projecting out light. It's just showing a bright white circle. And I'll see it on one side of my room, and then I'll see it on another side of my room. So to me, that's sort of like a signal. And I don't know if it's a signal to me in my subconscious and my unconscious, or if it's two people in my room or two beings in my room using that as a signal.
Hmm. Are you familiar with lucid dreaming at all?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, because I've heard with lucid dreaming, there's always like you'll see like a red bouncing ball or something like that to kind of trigger to tell your body, okay, I'm unconscious right now. So
Wow, that's
maybe,
interesting.
yeah, so maybe that could be what's going on. That's your signal, is that white little ball.
Oh, yeah, that's very interesting. I haven't heard of that. For a while, I thought, and I still think this, is that they use a tone to get me to get out of bed. And that might be part of it. I don't know. Maybe because I probably fell asleep right after I saw the white ball.
Yeah. Hmm.
Maybe then they
So
use the tone.
can you describe the tone?
No, I cannot. Because I think I'm already asleep when they run the tone. I've
Hmm.
woken up before where I would hear a very loud tone in my ear, and then in my journal I wrote, and I heard a color. Now I don't know what that means, but clearly I wasn't quite awake when I thought that. But the color was bright white, so maybe you're right. Maybe that is a gateway into my sub or unconscious.
I mean, it could be. I was just speculating. I'm not. I'm
That's
no
good.
expert.
I like it.
Well,
See,
good.
this is why I'm looking for people like me, because otherwise you're on your own and there's no way you can read everything and have all kinds of experiences as somebody else, who've had different experiences. And if you're sensitive, you've probably had a lot of experiences that I haven't had. So, to be able to share ideas, it's good.
Sure. Yeah. So, throughout the years of you talking about your story and telling people about this, have you come across anyone that could kind of relate to this topic?
I've had people that can relate, but I haven't had a person who feels. Actually, what I've found is that a lot of people are happy. They're contactees, and they're really happy about being abducted and or contacted, because they've changed the narrative a little bit. So an abductee is someone who is being abducted against their will, and a contactee, I think, is somebody who welcomes the contact and meets their hybrid children, and they're happy about it. So I found mostly that there are happy people, and I have yet to find someone who feels violated and that this is against their will and they want to stop it. I think a lot of people really don't want to know, and they're very afraid of what they'll find out, and they're too scared to. And no, I am not judging you, but too scared to continue on. Whatever they know about it, that's all they want to know. They feel like it's too scary to find out anymore. So, no, I haven't. So the short answer is no, I haven't found anyone. And I hope I eventually do, because that's the reason I wrote this book.
Well, like I mentioned his case before, Travis Walton, he was terrified from his experience, and it was very negative for him. When he was brought back, he was having like a total meltdown. His family, he had to walk to a phone booth and get picked up by his brother, and he wouldn't even talk to his brother. He was just, I don't know, he was just hysteric, and like it definitely, he didn't welcome it at all. In hindsight, he was like, it was stupid that I even got out of the truck. I shouldn't have done that. And if you get the chance, just go back and listen to his story.
I will.
I think you can relate to his experience quite a bit. Because like I said, when he woke up, he was just yelling. He was demanding to be let go. He was wanting to get off. Like he didn't want any part of it.
Oh, good. You know what? Maybe next time, if we ever have another UFO convention, I'll make a point to stop by there to his table, because I saw him a couple of, whatever the last UFO Congress, I guess, in Phoenix was, and I saw his table, but I hadn't really heard his story. I mean, I'd heard of him, but I hadn't read it or seen the movie or anything. So, but yeah, maybe I'll see if I can,
yeah, I think
work
he's
with
someone,
him. You never know.
yeah, I think he's someone that could definitely relate to you at least, and just relate to the negativity around it, because it affected him till this day. It affects him, and it just seems like something that you wouldn't want to seek out. The whole contactee thing where they're actually welcoming abductions. That's kind of a new thing for me. I hadn't heard of that. I mean, obviously, I've seen like funny pictures online, like anytime now I'm ready or something like that. Like,
Right.
because the world's crazy and people just try to find some humor in it. But yeah, that's new to me. I hadn't really heard of anybody actually like trying to get abducted. It's
Well, there are those, and then there's the other ones. I mean, it's across the spectrum. So there's the people that can't wait to get off this planet, and they're asking, "When are you coming back to get me?" And keep me forever. And then there's the people that are just, now that they explained it to me about what's going on, I understand and I'm happy. So there's those, and then there's people like me that are like, "No, I didn't agree to this. I'm not going, how dare you, And then I don't know, I think there's a whole big group of people that just it doesn't happen to them, or they don't know what happens to them, and they don't want to know. So,
well, have you ever tried hypnotherapy to remember more details?
no, I haven't. And I actually have a reason for that. One of the things is I believe that both the military and the ET groups, I think they use hypnosis, and I think they use suggestions, because in my book I wrote on one of my entries, because my journal is in my book later in the back. Probably you haven't gotten to it yet.
I have
But
not.
one of the things that I remember waking up and saying 331, 331. And I remember saying, I'm not supposed to move until 331. So when I look, I have a projector clock that projects the digital numbers in red on my ceiling of what time it is. And I saw that it was 3:30 a.m. And so I got up anyway because, I'm stubborn. I don't listen to people. So got up and I could hardly walk. And I was kind of like, hitting the wall, getting to the bathroom, back and forth. And so I really believe, it's my belief that they are using suggestion and hypnosis in some way. So I don't want to go into a situation where I don't know the person and they're hypnotizing me. And I also wonder too, and this is just my personal opinion, don't send me hate mail, but I wonder if a lot of times people who do hypnotic regression get the suggestion that it's fine, you like this, I don't know. But I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to go into it with, giving someone permission to hypnotize me because I don't really know what's going on, what they're saying, what they're not saying. So no, I haven't. And I'm not planning to ever do it.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious because I'm sure you've heard the recordings from Betty and Barney Hill when they got hypnotized and kind of recollected what happened when they were
No, I
abducted.
haven't heard those. It's funny. I don't know why, but as much as I was interested in UFOs when I was younger, I was never interested in UFO abductions.
Well,
I wanted to see insides of the ship. I wanted to see who was taking these poor people, but I never, first of all, never believed I was one. And secondly, the abduction part just was too frightening. And so that's probably why I've never read or seen anything like that, because it just seemed too scary. But that's how they found out, was hypnotic regression.
yeah, that's how they were able to really recollect exactly what happened. Because I actually did an episode on their abduction too, and you can go back and listen to their recordings. You can find them on YouTube. Just search Betty Barney Hill hypnosis, and they just Barney specifically just gets hysterical during his. He's yelling, he's crying, and you can tell they just overall had a horrible negative experience, and it was almost like them reliving it. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not suggesting to you to get hypnotized. You said you have no interest in it at all. I was just saying if maybe that was a resource that you had tried, because you said you've tried so many different things.
Not that one. I just had a real negative feeling toward it. And so I don't know I'm not saying I'll never do it, but it feels like a thing I shouldn't do. So that's why I haven't done it. But I have seen a lot of things now, so maybe it wouldn't be so bad. I just don't want my mind messed with any more than it already is.
Right. Well, like you said, you got to listen to your gut and your intuition. So if it's telling you no, then maybe it's
Yeah,
best to stay away from it.
exactly.
Now, you said they erased your memories, but when you were a kid, you wanted to see inside the ship and everything. Can you remember any details at all about any of these ships?
Actually, I do remember some of the ships, and I'm not sure that they were ships because I don't, some of my memories, don't really go that far. I do remember, when I was younger, I've been married before. And so with my first husband, I would have these, I don't know how to describe it, but I would wake up if my husband walked into the room after I'd gone to bed, if I went to bed first. I would sit up and start screaming. And I would remember like a square, a rectangle, a black rectangle. And so for many years, I tried to figure out what that was. And I think now it's a memory wipe. So I did look back at that using my remote viewing techniques. And I went backwards to see what that was. And I did see that I walked through a wall with two grays. And it was sort of like fabric at that point to a ship. But then that's it. Then it ends. So a lot of times your mind will give you what you need to know, but not all the details. Other times I've just seen the shiny bed, that's made out of some shiny material with something that I would describe as a coffee can with two knobs on the bottom and, sometimes needles. So these are the things I would see. My mind will only let me see that. Other times I've seen giant banks of windows, but it's really bright white in there. And so I don't really see any controls. I've seen beings using some sort of clear plastic or clear transparent computer. And, and I don't know if they're holding it or whatever. And so I've seen that, but I've seen a lot of operating rooms because apparently whatever they want me for, it's all about the operating room. So I've seen green, like institution green, I call it, operating rooms with a gallery on top. And I've seen, I call them jelly operating rooms where they look kind of like they're underwater in a really thick bubble, for lack of a better word. So I really haven't seen a lot of ships and I haven't seen a lot of details about that.
Well, funny enough, you said the black square, and I actually had come across a black square UFO that was filmed in Indiana.
Wow.
Yeah, so maybe once we get done talking, I'll send you the link to that, and you can take a look at that. But
All right.
I was just curious if you had any details about these ships, because you said you'd been taken by multiple different people throughout the night, or not people, but ETs throughout the night, and I was just curious if there was any details about those ships.
I wish there were, but they're just I don't know why, but everyone wants to know if I have seen the inside of a ship and what I saw. But a lot of times when I look at it or I have dreams or whatever, it's just sort of like situational. And I don't know how else to describe it, but it's like the focus is on me and what's being happening to me, but it's not the surrounding areas. So I can't really speak to what the ships looks like. And also a lot of times they've been taken underground to, buildings. They look like regular buildings. And so I don't know. I don't know if that's part of the military thing or what.
I mean, it could be possible. I've even heard of reports of seeing UFOs go into the ocean and into water and underwater.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally, like I said, nothing's off the table really when it comes to this topic, because we don't know what technology they have.
Yeah, and I actually think that they're really far ahead of us. I mean, we are probably very primitive to them, and also I think that whatever is really going on, I mean, it might as well be magic, because to us, it's just so outlandish, so outside of our norm, our comfort zone, our thoughts about science and whatever. And so we wouldn't even be able to describe what we're seeing, right?
Right. Yeah, it gets very hard to use earthly objects to describe extraterrestrial objects. It's just, but you're trying to relate to the people and try to describe it. But I understand, and that's also a common concept of other abductees. They think that the ETs are very much advanced and ahead of us. So I don't think you're wrong with that. I would imagine if their planet's millions of years more older than Earth, then they've definitely had more time to advance. I mean, if you just look at the technology over the past 50, 60 years that we've done here on Earth, I mean, it's pretty amazing. So
I said it's actually sort of scary. I mean, when you think about, like the first 100 years, or, even like the 1800s to the 1900s, it's huge. I mean, it's only 100 years, but huge, innovation. And now to the 2000s, I mean, it's unbelievable. So I have to believe that the ETs are involved in some way, or there's some sort of reverse engineering going on or something, because how would we advance so much all of a sudden?
Oh, yes, definitely. Are you familiar with Bob Lazar?
No.
Okay, well, he was a scientist that actually worked at Area S4, and he talked about all these spacecraft. They actually had spacecraft that he worked on, and his job was to try to reverse engineer this alien technology. And when you look at some of the military aircraft, it just looks otherworldly. It's like, where did they
Mm-hmm.
get the ideas for this design and all this? Because I don't know if you're familiar with like the classic black triangle UFOs that people report seeing,
Yeah.
but when you look at those and then you look at like the stealth bombers of the US military, you're like, okay, that's almost just like those UFOs.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
that's true. But you know what? It's funny. I mean, okay, yeah, they're finally coming out with that now. Before, they used the weather balloon thing in the Roswell
right.
incident, but they're still trying to use that. I don't know if you know that this is before my time in the Arizona area, but they had the Phoenix lights and they had I think the triangle with all these lights around it,
Mhm.
and they were trying to say it was a weather balloon or weather balloons or it was flares or they were trying to make up stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just with advancement of technology and being able to get information faster and news stories out faster, but it seems like almost weekly I see new UFO sighting stories all the time now. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it's happening more frequently, but it definitely seems like it's been picking up over the past couple of years.
Well, I mean, I think it might be a little of both. I mean, now we have with people like Whitley Strieber and Bud Hopkins and other people willing to, or Terry Lovelace, who helped, encourage me with my book. There's people coming out of the woodwork and telling their stories. And it's harder for the public to say, oh, ha, 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 that's a big joke, or you're crazy, or whatever. And so as it becomes more mainstream, people aren't so afraid of saying, oh, guess what? I saw a UFO and I took a picture of it. I mean, before they might be too fearful of the repercussions of society. But now, as people become more aware of it and more willing to speak out and more willing to take any of the societal, dumping on us that we do, then it becomes more mainstream, easier to talk about.
Yeah, and over the recent weeks, there's even been, well-known celebrities that came out and said, "Hey, look, this is a UFO." I believe Demi Lovato posted a video of her like trying to film a UFO,
Wow.
and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dan Aykroyd's story, but he claims that he got out of bed one night and just went out to his yard and was being told to go outside and look up at the sky, and then he saw something.
Wow.
And I don't know, it just seems like it's becoming more and more accepted and people are just experiencing this. And when you have celebrities that are putting their reputations on the line, there's got to be some clout to their stories.
I agree. Also, that Israeli, I think, general who said, ETs are real. And did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. I think I mentioned that on one of my episodes before, but I can't remember all the details exactly. But he claimed that Donald Trump knew about it and everything. So it was,
Yeah, I know. I was hoping Donald Trump, for his last hurrah, would, tell
yeah.
us all that stuff.
And they actually kind of tucked it into one of these COVID relief packages that they're supposed to release all of their papers and information and documents about UFOs and alien technology. But I don't know if anything's going to come of that. But it was actually built into one of these COVID relief packages.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, didn't they release a bunch of CIA documentation recently? A bunch of documents. But one of the problems is, yeah, they're releasing documents with, with big black marks through most of it. And so, yeah, yay, you released some documents, but you redacted them so much that nobody can tell what it says.
Right, right. Yeah, and That's also something that was touched on one of those Joe Rogan podcast episodes is they said that there's certain information that the government has to keep secret because they can't let the other Western world governments know what we know. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just it becomes a safety and security issue when you tell other countries exactly what we know, and because that also exposes what we don't know, and then they can compare their notes to what they know, and then it just becomes a big, it's there's always an ongoing war here on earth between countries, so I don't think we'll ever get full transparency.
Well, I do think that some of the other countries, though, are a lot more forthright about it than, the US, for instance, because I know that there are quite a few sightings in other countries, and there seem to be more willing to talk about it and admit that it happened. And maybe they don't release all of their documents, all that what they know, but at least they'll say, yeah, this does exist. I think Mexico or maybe some other Latin America countries have done that.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to be the American way, doesn't it?
It
It's
does.
just
But
like,
you know what? All that secrecy is like, yeah, okay. I always think of it as an excuse. Well, we're protecting you. We're protecting you,
yeah, yeah.
And so maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I mean, maybe they're protecting themselves.
I mean, maybe you're right. I get, maybe we'll get some answers. I hope we do. Like you said, they did release some of those documents, and maybe we'll see something come up in the upcoming months. But I guess we'll just have to see. Now, is there anything we haven't touched on that you wanted to touch on?
Um, I wanted to touch on remote viewing. Now, I use
Okay.
that term when I use my green spiral staircase from Stuart Swerdlow's book and in my book also. But it's actually a really good skill to have. There are quite a few classes on it. There's one called controlled remote viewing or coordinate remote viewing, where you have coordinates of a target and you actually use your brain to go to that target and, look at stuff. There's also one called extended remote viewing. And I really think this is a really good skill to have. And that's why I started calling my green spiral staircase exercise remote viewing of the mind, because you're actually looking inside your mind. You're looking at what happened prior to the screen memory. And it's really, really important. But another thing to use the green spiral staircase for is negative emotions. So, for instance, let's say that you have, so let's say you're procrastinating. And I didn't realize this because I have that. I have procrastination. And it's actually fear, it's anxiety. And I didn't realize that until here I am, 59 years old, that, hey, procrastination is actually anxiety and it's fear. So I use it to find out what's behind the procrastination. So you use the green spiral staircase, you keep it in your mind, you walk down your staircase, you feel like you need to step off the staircase, and you ask your mind, what is behind this procrastination? And then it says, anxiety or, fear or, disappointment. But what happens is after you do this exercise, then you feel better. And it's really, really helpful. One of the things I did recently was two things. One is I tried to find out what was behind my claustrophobia. And now I didn't have claustrophobia my whole life. When I turned 40, I started having problems with claustrophobia. So I looked behind claustrophobia, and what I saw was little black coffins, like as if the ETs were punishing me by putting me in a black coffin and closing the door. And so then that gave me a fear of tight spaces. And once I looked at it using the green spiral staircase, it went away.
Hmm.
And now I tested this out because I don't know if you've heard of this float pod thing where you are in a pod, like a deprivation chamber, but
Yeah.
basically it has magnesium water or Epsom salts. I think that's the same thing.
Yeah.
And you float, right?
Yeah.
So when I first started using it, I could not close the door. And so I'd put, a little foam roll in between the door and the bottom of the door and the top of the door.
Hmm.
And now I can close the door all the way. So I know I've made progress with my claustrophobia. Another thing is sometimes when I have earplugs on, I will actually feel like I can't breathe, which I think is irrational and strange. But I found out by using the green spiral staircase that the reason I feel like I can't breathe is because when my ears are plugged, I've been underwater. And so so I don't know if that happened when I was abducted or if that's something that the ETs made me do, be underwater. But so that's why I feel like I can't breathe. So what I started doing is working with the green spiral staircase and looking at that. Another person who interviewed me from WCET, I hope that you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
He said he used it to find out why he was anxious, and he saw like a beautiful green like meadow, and he felt peace, and then he could sleep. So I think these are important things. If you're not abducted, but you want to try some of these things to make you feel better, I think it's important. What's in your mind? What's your mind keeping you from doing? And can you alleviate it?
Yeah, it definitely seems like a good tool that could apply really to anyone, especially right now with all the stressful times. Everyone's so anxious. You don't know what's going to happen the next day or the next week. Excuse me.
Exactly. And
But
what if you could just alleviate those horrible oppressive feelings of fear and depression, anxiety?
right. And I among millions of other people across the world, we struggle with mental health and anxiety, and it would definitely be helpful to have a tool to try to leave some of that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think those are two important things. One thing I think is really important. This is what I started doing, and I'm just one of those weird people, but I started writing everything down. I kept a notebook by my bed, and even when I woke up in the middle of the night with some crazy dream, I would write it all down, anything I could remember. And this is really, really helpful, and it really is important to do because you think you can remember it, but you won't. And so I've
Right.
learned the hard way. I will never remember this. So I get up, write things down. And then I go back later using the green spiral staircase and the brown X and, remove the negativity that I see behind my dreams. And so the only way to be kind of methodical about it and to, make connections and figure out part of the puzzle is to be able to write things down and then find out what you need to behind your mind and then piece it together little by little. It takes some time. But if you're really want to know what's really going on and stopping it using the brown X, it's worth it.
Well, it definitely seems worth it if it can, help you with this crippling anxiety or any issue really that's keeping you from reaching your goals. If there's always that fear and anxiety behind things, it's going to hold you back in some way.
Exactly. And if you feel despair, I mean, it could be the ETs. I mean, they could be, using your whatever they know about you to feel this despair and depression, or like you can't go forward because you're too tired. And, what if you could change that?
I mean, I feel like everybody would want to change that if this is something they relate to.
Yeah, exactly. One time, and this is in my book too, I was suddenly, a thought popped into my mind. And, with all the pictures and the people talking and all that, you don't really know where these things come from. But one of the things that happened was a thought popped in my mind that, this other person, I've been married a long time. Another person was really interested in my husband. And, she, and so these feelings of, anxiety and jealousy and, they just popped up and they were
Mhm.
really strong. And I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm not afraid of losing him. And as soon as I said that, it was like this, it went away. So it made me wonder, where are these thoughts coming from? Are they coming from me? I mean, so that brought up a lot of negative emotion. And so that's really what I think the ETs are interested in, is our negative emotions. Are we worried about something? Are we afraid of losing our husband, to another person or, another woman? And as soon as you say, I am not afraid of that, the thought goes away and you feel better. So when those thoughts come to you, fight back. They talk about the critical parent voice. What if
Hmm.
it's not critical parent? What if it's some entity wanting you to feel bad or horrible or in despair or depression so that they can feel, I don't know, maybe they can suck on it, maybe they
Yeah.
get to suck on the energy. What if that's happening? And you
Um,
just say, I'm not afraid.
I mean, that very well could be. I know not just with ETs, but also in the paranormal field, they say that entities feed off energy, no matter what the energy is. You could be using electronic devices and they just drain the batteries when it's brand new batteries, or, feed off your energy. They can tell when you're feeling fear and then they'll provoke that fear and just feed off of it, especially if it's like an evil entity. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't see why, if they're an advanced ET society, they could probably do the same and be interested in this energy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not out of the question, I don't believe.
I agree. And so, I think that we're in a lot more control than we think we are. And we just have to think a little bit differently, instead of letting our brain beat us up, saying, oh, you're never going to make it. Or, I actually have that in my book, thinking, oh, you'll never figure this out. You're not smart enough, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But if you say, well, wait a minute, I think I am smart enough and I have tools or I have people that I know that are smarter than me that can help me or whatever. But, just take that away from them and feel better. Take back your power.
I mean, it sounds like a great plan to anybody that's struggling right now, and especially if they're feel like they're being abducted and they're looking for some help and answers, a way to fight back. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like if you get to the point to where you can remove all of this fear and anxiety, do you believe that that's when suddenly the ETs will no longer be interested and you can stop these abductions?
I believe so. I mean, I think that their whole thing is fear and control. I mean, I think fear controls people. I mean, look at COVID, for instance.
Right.
They whipped up the fear, and then everybody started hoarding food, and there was great fear. And I really wonder, if that's not part of their plan too. We're going to control these people. We have them all fearful. We control their mind. So yes, I do believe that that is possible. Now, the only problem is that I published my book in February of 2020, and now it's 2021 of February. And oh my gosh, so many things have changed. I mean, that's one of the things is that when you start using these tools, what happens is you start changing like your paradigm. So you start going in another direction. And then some of the directions that I've seen are just blow my mind, actually. Um, but things change. And so I don't know, it feels like there's an onion and I peel back one layer and then I peel back another layer. And some of the things that are happening now are just so unusual that I don't even know where I'm going now, but things have really changed. So I hope that they leave me alone and I can get down to the bottom of this, but who knows? I might have opened another can of worms and there's even more layers behind it.
Now, is this book your first book that you've ever written?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so are you planning on maybe doing a follow-up book if you see more changes happening, or
Yes.
okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if maybe you were an author before and then you wrote a book, or if you were planning on writing more about this topic.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I vacillate between it because, it's, being a kind of an introvert and, it's a lot of attention for someone, like me.
Yeah.
But I think so because it just seems like I can't, all of these different changes are just need to be told. But at the same time, I'm not sure because at with my first or with this book, there felt like there was a definite end date where I could stop, doing my experiments and write the book and have an end. But now it seems like it's ongoing and changing all the time. And so I don't know when that will be. I hope so, but I'm not sure.
Well, I will try to stay in contact with you for sure and just keep me posted. If you have another book come out and you want to talk about it, just get in touch with me.
Okay, will do. I definitely will do that.
Yeah. Well, I've really appreciated your time and thanks for taking the time out to talk to me. I love to hear your story, and it's a different perspective that I haven't heard before of alien abductees, of somebody being abducted frequently and trying to learn how to fight back. It's definitely an interesting story.
Well, thank you.
Oh, no problem. Now, before I let you go, is there any last words of wisdom or anything you want to tell our listeners?
I would just say, get mad, and don't let them get you down. Don't let them make you feel bad. Just fight back. Utilize my book, and I mean, you can just buy the two Stuart Swerdlow books and create your own path, or you can follow my path and then experiment. Because the thing is that whatever's happening to me may not be happening to you, and that's okay. It's just we're all individuals, and they all utilize us in different ways. So don't be afraid to experiment and try different things and go wherever your path seems to go.
Well, all right. I guess that'll do it for our conversation. I want to thank you again. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and stay in touch.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad for all of the people who are having paranormal experiences that have enough guts to get on a podcast. I mean, it's amazing how many podcasts there are in paranormal, and it's really awesome to be able to tell your story and be able to do it in a safe environment where no one's going to make fun of you and they're just going to listen and have an open mind. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was my goal from the beginning of this show, because like we talked about, people often just kind of tuck their experiences away from fear of being judged, or they feel like they're alone. So that was my goal with this show, is just to kind of open the field up and just let people tell me their stories. So thanks again for reaching out to me.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa, take care. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And that's going to be a wrap on episode 17. I really hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Lisa O'Hara. And I have left all of her information and contact info down in the show notes. And you will also find links to not only her book, Abducted and Furious, but you can also find the other books that she mentioned during our conversation. And I will also leave other resources that I mentioned during our conversation if this topic further interests you. And if you have a similar experience that you would like to talk about on the show, or any other type of paranormal or strange experience, again, look down in the show notes and I will have all the info that you need to submit your story to this podcast. I want to thank you all for making it to the end of this episode. I know it was a long conversation, but I hope it was beneficial to you in some way and that you guys can take something away from it. But anyways, you guys having a good night and take care. See you guys next Saturday at 9 p.m.